Thank you for being here tonight with us. The board has been in executive and work sessions. It's about 5:30 tonight, so we've already called the meeting to order.
Connie, I think we do need to wait for Jonathan.
I'm sorry.
I think
I
he
didn't
was right
even-
behind us, so he can't be far.
No, he can't. I was focusing on the
I
number of
agree.
seats that are filled.
I agree.
Thank you.
I want to get going too, but he's usually always here, so.
That's a fair comment. Thank you.
There he is.
Man of the hour.
Right.
Good? Yeah. Yeah, I tried to start the meeting without you, but Kevin wouldn't let me.
Thanks for waiting.
Sorry. As I was saying, the board has been in session and work in executive session, so we have moved into regular session. We are one board member short tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. Mrs. Batchy will not be able to be here with us. But we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, if you all rise and join me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on. We have the approval of minutes from the last board meeting up for approval. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Both B and C, we're doing
I'm sorry?
both board meetings? Are we doing both or just one at a time?
Yes. Yeah, both of them.
So moved.
Yes, thank you. I'm just loving this. Any discussion? So moved. Or, I'm sorry, Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes,
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin? Yes. Mr. Orr?
Yes.
4-0.
thank you. Next up is the superintendent's presentation tonight, so I will turn it over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Tracy to give us an introduction of who we are going to meet tonight.
Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our community to our Mason High School dance team, who look very fierce up here, and boy, did they have an incredible performance at the UDA Dance Nationals. We ranked the best in program history under some incredible leadership from a group of seniors who had such a commitment, and we're going to hear from one of their senior captains. Miss Lily is going to come up and tell us a little bit about what this experience was like. And I also wanted to ask Coach Christina Hutter to come on up and share just a little bit about this experience, what these girls have given, and obviously being dance moms and dance dads takes a whole lot of effort too. So grateful for their family support, and glad that we could have so many of you joining us tonight. And with that, we'll give a round of applause for Coach Hutter.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina Hutter, and I am the head coach of the Mason varsity dance team. This is my 6th year coaching, and this is actually my 3rd year taking the team to nationals. And since before then, they hadn't been since 2007. So it had been a long time since we have put our name out there on the national floor. And at this competition, there's hundreds of teams that come from all over the country that compete. And in some categories, there's up to 90 teams that compete against each other. It's very competitive, and these girls know what they were going into, and it was a lot of pressure. I always prepare them in the month of January that once we get through January, we're good to go. And they're exhausted. They're working on time management, working through school and practice every single day, and we have other competitions that we do before that. So I first want to say I'm just so proud of my team, And I also want to thank administration for allowing us to go. It's a big journey for us to go down to Florida. It's a lot of money. We do a lot of fundraising. And of course, I'm so thankful of our parents that have supported us along the way. So we're hoping to continue to grow. We placed 14th in the country in large hip hop. And yes. It was a very emotional journey for us, lots of tears. And so yeah, we're hoping just to continue to grow and take that ranking up every single year and push this program just to be the best that we possibly can be. So with that, I would like to share with you the video of our performance.
I can say from personal experience, it wasn't that soft in the action.
That's right. Yeah, and I was going to say, too, so they get 2 minutes on the floor, and we did perform in semis, and then we advanced to finals. And what you don't see here is there are hundreds of people that are in the crowd around them, and the energy is just electric when they're out there. And their goal is as you can see, they call it the castle, so they get to walk through the castle, and it's so special and magical and very nerve-wracking. So so thank you so much for sharing that. And then did you want me to go ahead and have the girls come up and introduce themselves?
That would be terrific.
Okay, so I'll start with, my one assistant coach, Holly Phelps, is not here, but then my other one, she can come up, And we'll just go up in a line, and you guys can each come up and say your name and what grade you're in. So if you want to line up so it doesn't take forever.
Well, my name... Is it working? Oh, okay. I couldn't hear it. My name is Morgan Elam, and I'm one of the assistant coaches.
Hi, I'm Danny Yang, and I'm a senior.
My name is Ellie Ganat, and I'm also a senior.
My name's Lauren Bowers, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Ariana Gundler, and I'm a freshman.
Hi, I'm Riley, and I'm a junior.
I'm McKenna, and I'm a junior.
I'm Eileen, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Kate, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Elena. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Morgan Welch, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Clara Miller, and I'm a senior.
I'm Becca Kling, and I'm a senior.
I'm Lily Porter, and I'm a senior. I was one of the captains this year, and I just wanted to take a minute to, is it working?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? If you step a little bit that way. No, it's all good.
Okay, I just wanted,
I just figured this was part of an act, like you guys are getting ready to beatbox or something.
A little drop right there, thanks.
I just wanted to take a minute to talk about how big of a deal Nationals is to us. It's been a very important experience, not only for me and this team here, but for the alumni and the teams in the past. The first year the team went to Nationals, obviously, since 2007 was my freshman year. And just the growth that has been shown from my freshman year and those performances to my very last performance this year has been exponential. This year was especially important because we didn't get to go last year, and so I felt like we needed to step it up a little bit, bring it for the alumni and the seniors who didn't get to go last year and in the years prior who had worked up to what we were able to accomplish this year. This team did an amazing job being able to achieve that. We've been reaching for it for so long, and I thank my coaches, my parents, and the administrators, the alumni, everybody who has made this possible. So, thank you.
We're going to have the ladies come down, and I think Tracy wants to get a picture, and we'd like to personally congratulate all of you.
We have the trophy.
Yes,
So
bring
we'll
That's great.
our
Absolutely.
pretty trophy that we're going to display in the school.
Absolutely. You guys want to swing by? We have a gift for each of you. Yeah, you can start at this end with Kevin and move on down. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a few
For as much choreography and coordination as you guys have.
It must be the choreographer.
This is like the final level. Congratulations.
Good job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Great job. Congratulations.
Whoops.
Congratulations.
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 I really appreciate it. Oh, there you go.
Uh-oh. Congratulations. Great job.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Good job.
You're welcome.
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you for being here
Great
tonight.
job.
We really appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome. Great job.
We'll be the last one, right?
We're gonna have to stand like behind.
yeah.
We're gonna go around and squeeze in around. The edges are behind there.
These dancers understand how to do it. Right. Oh yeah, that's gonna look great. Fantastic. All right, everyone, eyes right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. So proud
Congratulations.
We need more room.
Thank you.
Because the group's Are we allowed to ask a question if we have one?
Absolutely.
So I was just wondering whether our team captain or the coach could, for the uninitiated, walk us through what a schedule is like for the dance team from a training and season standpoint. As I am like weeding out activities for my daughter's next 12 years,
Right.
I want to know what I'm getting into here.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize he has no choice.
I know. Yeah. So the dance team, especially the varsity dance team, is a big commitment. Typically, we have tryouts coming up in April, and then we call it off season. So they practice once a week, and then once we get into the summer, we start training for our summer camp that we go to, UDA camp, and that's how we qualify to be able to even go to nationals. So we perform there. We have to qualify by placing the top 3 teams at camp. Or we also can do it by getting so many ribbons for the performances or the dances that they learn. And so that's kind of off season, but it's still it's still busy because they're still getting themselves prepped for competing, essentially. And then once the fall starts, they have practice 3 days a week, and it's typically Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays after school. And then they start competing around November. It's changed, like, depending on COVID's obviously really thrown a wrench the last couple years into our competition schedule. But around November, December is when we start competing, and they also perform at all the boys' halftime varsity basketball games. And so then we train. Once it hits January, we have practice 5 days a week, which really ends up being 7 with competitions. I see them, I'm like, I'll see you the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And so, and then they compete. Nationals is typically the last weekend of January, the first weekend of February. And then after that happens, they get a week off, and then they start seeing me again in off-season practice. So that's what we're doing right now. I saw them today. And then they, it's just once a week. So it's just, dance is one of those things they can't, once you stop, it's really hard to get back into shape. And so, and a lot of them also dance at studios. So they're dancing at their studios full time. And that's why we don't have our whole team here. A lot of them are at studio practices right now. So, yeah. Any other questions?
How do you balance that? How do you balance the studio dance and then the girls that may do, I mean, that was hip hop, but as a husband to a wife that is a former dancer that still teaches dance, you've got ballet, tap, jazz, and so do we compete in those spaces as well?
Yeah, so they also compete in POM, which is, technically they have to be trained, most of them, all of them have had training in ballet, of course. And then jazz is one of the parts that they have to try out in, because it just helps make sure that we know they have the technical skills to be able to compete in POM. And this year we didn't advance as far as we would have liked for POM, but we were still really proud of our performance. It's a very competitive space. So those are the 2 categories that we compete in each year. But then we also have performed at a basketball game. They'll perform jazz. Our one assistant coach, Holly, she does a lot of our technical training, like off-season practices for them. So they'll do, stretching and ballet and all that kind of stuff. And then they also do all that at studio. So balance is hard, and time management is something they all know that I speak about all the time. And I also tell the parents all the time, like trying to give them a heads up, like, hey, we really need to make sure we're prioritizing this, this, and this, because it can get overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me. I don't have to do all of it. So, any other questions?
I would just say to the ladies, when you work at your craft and then you compete and accomplish at the high level that you have, you set an example for your classmates. That what we've learned is that given the age, sometimes the classmates aren't so vocal about it. There might be some hype and they're excited for you, but there's a lot of young ladies that are looking up at you, and you're setting a great example. And as part of the culture that we really value here, it's the responsibility that you all have to understand that and to live that out. And then the other thing I would just say is you can't have dance without parents. And so I would just say a round of applause for the parents here. Congratulations to all of you. It's super exciting. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for honoring us.
We really appreciate you ladies being here tonight and sharing with us what your experience has been. And I think in dance, maybe more so than a lot of other types of activities, the easier it looks, the harder it was to pull off, and it looked pretty easy tonight. Congratulations to all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll take a pause for you ladies who would like to go home and finish your homework or get on to other parts of your lives. We'll take a pause and thank you.
Great to have you. Thanks, family, as well. Thank you, family.
Oh, thank you, yes.
That's a lot.
I know, I wanted to bring them. It was definitely a tricky situation.
No, you did a great job.
You want to go to dance? Okay, let's go this way.
You're welcome.
Good, boys. Good.
would have thought you'd have mouse ears on the trophy.
No doubt.
Hey,
A lot of those competitions are held there.
Yeah, you go down to Orlando, everything's got mouse ears.
Next on our agenda is hearing of the public. And tonight, our first speaker will be Edward Perdue. Come to the podium and state your name and your residence, and we give each speaker 3 minutes of time to speak. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. My name is Edward Perdue, 301 East Circle Drive, Mason. I'm here to speak again about critical race theory. 9 months ago, I first contacted you regarding CRT. In May of 2021 to support the Ohio School Board President Scott Huddle and his pushback against critical race theory. No comments. I've briefed many times on this issue, and now it's at the forefront of America and the world. As America and the world tackle this as communist Marxist ideology, the FBI targets mothers who speak out against CRT, and the board here makes light of it. The grassroots movement to confront local school boards is growing by the day. It's in an effort to purge our schools of communist ideology in America. Communist ideology being taught in Mason K-12. And all of you fail to acknowledge the issue, let alone take action. Yesterday, Ohio Value voters called on the Ohio State Board of Education to immediately rescind social emotional learning, putting families in danger by promoting SEL programs. Ohio Value voters point out CRT underlines parental rights, promotes data collection, impersonates mental health services, promotes psychological evaluation by unqualified teachers, involves problematic privacy policies, promotes activism, allegiance, and division. You do not have the right to divide parents from children and indoctrinate Marxist communist ideology into the children. I filed a First Amendment lawsuit against the board, and I'm requesting a Freedom of Information Act today with Superintendent Cooper. Americans are done with the deep state government, stonewalling and dividing the country. The collective conscience and American patriot will to support and defend the Constitution will not allow communism to dictate the United States of America. In spiritual warfare, God wins in the end. You best believe that. Thank you for your time.
Our second speaker tonight is Emily Hausman.
Thank you. My name is Emily Hausman, and I live on Lakewood Drive in Mason. I'm a substitute teacher and a parent of 2 comets, and I've been reflecting a lot since the BSU's event 11 days ago, sharing the Black experience in Mason with whomever would tune in. As I think we all know, some bad actors tuned in and lobbed a racist attack against our community. That attack reminded me of the words of Nobel laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, who said, "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim." I agree with Wiesel's words, and I think you do too. I wanted to thank Mason City Schools for your second district-wide email on the topic of the Zoom bombing incident, in which you explicitly called out the bad behavior as unacceptable. I am speaking here tonight to ask that you do more of that, please. I know that it can feel weird to have to state out loud what I hope for most of us is obvious, that racism is bad. And I also know that it feels awful when I have failed to do it at all. I know that I would benefit from more practice in stating that obvious. So, where can I get this practice? I think MCS has a resource that we are not currently using in this regard, our anti-bias tip line. I believe that if I had more information about the kinds of racism and bias that happen in our schools, I would be better prepared to stand up to it when I see it. I am currently researching more examples of how to share that kind of information, but there is one excellent resource here in Cincinnati, Xavier University's Bias Advisory Response Team's public reporting system. It is depersonalized, it shares the facts of the incident and whether the incident has been deemed an act of bias and where it has been referred to for follow-up. I think that would be a terrific model to follow, and if I find others, I will forward them to you. Reading through my high schoolers' course selection materials, I was thrilled to see a report from Harvard's Making Caring Common project. One of the lines that leaped out at me was on page 14. Any healthy society depends on citizens who are concerned about others and the common good. I think sometimes we underestimate our fellow citizens, and I don't want us to make that mistake here. I think that if our Mason community were fully informed of the kinds of bias that has occurred here and the kinds of harm that happens in our buildings, our community would want to be part of the solution. I think that we value our students and staff, and we would want to keep all of them safe from harm. Please trust all of us to do the right thing with the information about bias in our district. Thank you.
And our third and final speaker tonight is Amy Mercer.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Amy Mercer, and I live at 5689 Crestwood Drive. And I promise you, it is not my intention to bogart the mic at every school board meeting. But tonight, I wanted to come and talk about the Zoom bomb incident on the Black Student Union Town Hall a couple of weeks ago. I was on the call when the incident occurred and was very startled by what I saw and what I heard. What I saw and heard was racist, hateful, and extremely violent. And it was clear that it was directed at the students, children who were running the forum. I was so bothered by the fact that someone would direct such hatred at a child. But what bothered me more was when we were able to resume the call, a Mason High School alumni who was on the call and who's a student at UC said that this happened quite frequently to her in the groups that she participates in at UC. Many of the Black adults and students on the call nodded their head in agreement. It was the first time it's ever happened to me. We have to talk about this. We have to talk about all of the racial aggression directed at our kids. I don't think that many of my friends and neighbors in this community realize the gravity and extent of the racial incidents that these kids have to endure. I heard about many of them on that call that night. The fact that they bravely regrouped and continued with their program with such poise is not only a testament to these amazing kids, but a testament also to the fact that they were not expecting this. We owe it to every kid in our community to feel safe and loved, and I believe we have to start talking with greater transparency and honesty about the racism that exists in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is item number 7, non-district funded positions. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Ms. Yangling?
Yes.
4-0.
Next is item 8, certified personnel superintendent's recommendations. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
On item 8, the only discussion, just to, when we have resignations, retirements throughout the agenda, just want to thank people for their service here. We have some folks on here that have been serving in our district for a long time, made a huge impact on student lives in our classrooms, and want to thank them for that, wish them their best on their next part of their journey. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I mean, it's somewhat stated right now. You can see it in the national news about the difficulty of teaching and the profession in and of itself. And there's some names on here that will really be a negative hit to our students in terms of losing them. So while we always wish people the best, we also are mindful of the culture that we need to make sure we create so that we attract and retain, the top teachers we can, so.
Absolutely. Got some longtime teachers in this one that have given my family some fond memories as well. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
4-0.
Next is item 9, supplemental personnel. Superintendent's recommendation. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
4-0.
Item 10, resolution for hiring non-certified personnel. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none. I thank these people for taking on the extra position outside the classroom, spending their time with our students. Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
4-0.
Item 11 is classified personnel. Superintendent's recommendations. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Only discussion is just, again, we have retirements and resignations on here to recognize that. Also, and I didn't mention this on item 8, but you'll see the list of substitute teachers on 8, and I missed that, and you'll see then substitute employees here. We have the largest list of substitute teachers we've ever had on an agenda in my time, and so I just want to pause for a second to thank Tanya and her team, because when we opened that up, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and we are backlogged with how many substitute teachers want to, because, we've been working on that. We've tried a lot of new strategies. Those new strategies are catching and sticking, and we are actually filling classrooms faster than we have ever. So I just want to hit pause there and just recognize that, and I apologize I missed that on item 8, but it's also here on item 11 as well.
Any further comment? No. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate all of your and your team's work on that. Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
4-0.
Item 12, certified personnel, additional duties. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion?
You'll see on item 12 and item 13, that comes up in a moment, that there are additional hours being placed on here for staff that's supporting students and continuing their support, whether it's reading support. You'll see this Comet Club, for example, which is an intervention at Mason Elementary. So I want to thank the folks that stepped up to do that. And we're just happy and thrilled that we have those opportunities to continue to support kids even beyond what we do in the classroom. You'll see that both under certified and under classified.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments?
I think it's magnificent that we have a culture where people step up to support. This comes out of folks' personal time, so that there's a stipend there for them to support them stepping up, but just the willingness to do so is commendable, so I thank you.
And seeing no other discussion, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
4-0.
And item 13, just you mentioned, Jonathan, similar action. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
I think Kevin seconded.
Kevin seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I
all right.
apologize. It's amazing the impact one less board member will have.
Fails for no second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
None.
Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
4-0.
Item 14 is a resolution to approve our membership in Ohio High School Athletic Association. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Also for saying it loudly from here. Any discussion on this?
Just a reminder that each year we do join the OHSAA and participate in that for our students to continue to participate at the highest levels. So that's exactly what this is authorizing here tonight.
Any other comments? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
4-0.
Next item is item 15. It's the action items for the superintendent's most meaty recommendations. I need a motion, please,
So moved.
and a second.
Second?
And Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you for a couple of comments, and then if the board would like to ask questions item by item, because there's several.
That's great. Yeah, so items A through H, I'll just walk through them quickly, just to remind people what we have here. The first one is the OSBA membership dues. Each year we renew our dues to the Ohio School Board Association. We're a part of that for professional learning connections, as well as the oversight of some of our policy development and legal counsel that goes along with that. You'll see that show up also on item B as well, so that's part of the assistant fund for the membership. Item C is disposal of items. Those items specifically are coming from Royalmont. So some of the private schools around here, they dispose of different items through us because we are the avenue to do that as the public school in their district. So that shows up as item C. Item D is TransFinder. TransFinder is a new program that is helpful. We already have a program in place for transportation. So just to orient everybody, we have 109 buses, I believe, somewhere around that number. And we have multiple layers of routes. So we run about 3 tiers of routes throughout our district. That's super complicated because you're trying to make sure you're picking up kids at the right time, the right places. Those are always changing. You have special needs involved in that. So there's just lots of layers to that. Well, the program that we have now is starting to get more antiquated. We've held on for a few years. This program allows us to be even more accurate in some of the building of those, and it's more of a slick program, so that even has communication tools that we don't have now currently to our access. So that's what this TransFinder is. We'll move away from the old program that we have into this new program, and as we do that, we'll actually see some cost savings and a benefit just to our overall systems. And so that's what's happening here. Hopefully it's even a better, the hope is it's even a better customer experience for our kids and their families as we go along with that. So Mark, I give Mark, Todd and that crew a lot of credit because they've done a lot of research on this. They've brought it to Facilities Committee a couple times just to look at it, and so now we're moving it forward tonight as a recommendation. Item E is Media Center book disposal. We do go through a life cycle of books, and we come through and we place those on here, so people can see what is being moved out. And new books obviously are always moving in. Mason High School, this is the Early Childhood Center and high school asphalt project. So maybe not as fun and glamorous, but it is really important. And we went out to bid. Last meeting you voted to approve the bid process, so we went out to bid. I think the bid was up to maybe $350,000, something, if I have that right in my brain. That was our budget, and bids came underneath right around 324, somewhere in that ballpark. So we're grateful because the bids came under. We saved money in that, and we're able to move forward on those 2 projects this summer. Obviously, we have more asphalt to replace and repair than probably anywhere in the county because we have a lot of space, and so constantly working to have that on a cycle so we don't get behind, and Todd and his operations crew has done a nice job setting us up for success on that. Let's see, next one on here is exciting. We have the primetime rental events. That rental is a repeat. This will be the 2nd year we will be hosting the graduation at the tennis center, and so that partnership with the tennis center last year went so well that we invested in that partnership. We invested in some of the things. We decided we're going to at least do that another year to see how that goes. It was local. We love that. And so this is a part of that rental. So we're getting things ready for graduation already coming up. And you can find out more information as that information comes together. And then the final thing on here, H, is the Dell lease agreement. We also have our technology and our computers that each of our staff members have on a rotating cycle. And that rotating cycle is coming up. And so this is the lease agreement to continue to move that cycle so that our staff always has the appropriate, best tools that they can for doing their job in the classroom. So this will be a part of that process. And I think that if I remember correctly, this lease agreement, it saves us about $4,000 from our previous agreement, if I have that right in my mind. So those are the items that we have up for recommendation tonight.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Welcome.
Appreciate the elaboration. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
I got a couple. The first two items for OSBA membership, I'd just like to lay a marker here that, and I'm going to support these, but in my mind, if the OSBA continues its participation in what I would just call ancillary activities that aren't, in the best interest of its members, but instead are looking outward at other issues, then I've learned recently that there's several options for the services that we get from OSBA, and they certainly are not the only one that can provide them. And so while I said I'm going to support it tonight, I just do want to put a marker out there that we need to be smart about the memberships that we get involved in. The other thing I think is on the lease agreement, we're going to make one edit to that, right, Sean?
Yeah, the electronic version should be correct.
The electronic version is correct,
Yeah.
okay. So it's a monthly, or it says it's a monthly payment on our hard copy, but that's an annual payment. What we're going to approve is an annual payment, not a monthly payment, so that's all I have.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
Just since you raised it, Kevin, just kind of go back to October, I think it was, when we appreciated and acknowledged that publicly, the OSBA coming out and distancing itself from some of the comments from a different school board association at the national level that we are not members of. That we've heard some comments tonight about boards coming down on parents who may have criticism or want to come and speak at public meetings. It's never been an issue for us in our community, and it's something that we think that if that was ever an issue, we would certainly distance ourselves from a organization that said something along those lines.
Any other comments? I'll just throw a comment out, take the opportunity to pat our transportation department on the back. It's a huge deal to get our kids safely to school and home every day. And I'm happy to give them some tools that they need to make sure that gets done. And likewise, the people who take care of our buildings, both of these categories under Mr. Petrie's regime or realm, but they do a great job, and we have buildings that we can be proud of, and they treat them right, and we really appreciate that. And we're looking forward to a continued new partnership for graduation in the community. Love that idea. I think it turned out super well last year, and I'm glad to see it moving forward in that direction again. Any other comments? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Morrow?
And with that, Sean, 16 is the treasurer's report. Do you have any comments for us tonight?
Sure. Do you want to take the motion first?
Yeah, I really appreciate the information that you
Oh,
sent
sure.
to the board prior to the meeting tonight. I thought it was very helpful information.
Great.
And if you could elaborate just a bit on that.
Yeah, why don't we
for
do
our
that?
public.
So moved.
Oh, thank you. May I have a motion?
Second.
So a couple of things to highlight in this section of the agenda tonight. One is in the donations area. many donations from people both inside and outside the community for lots of activities that go on around the district. One in particular, if you look at the very last donation on there from the MEC PTO, over $15,000 of donations to the building, and just for various things that they're doing there in the building and supporting kids. So always appreciative of our donors and people who help provide opportunities for our kids. Second thing I wanted to highlight was, if you back up just one step there to the new funds, we have 3 new funds being created, one for the Black Student Union at the high school, and then 2 grant funds. Black Student Union is a newer group, and they have done some fundraising, and so this is a account being created for them to continue to do some of the things that they have planned here in the future. The 2 grants, one is through, that first one, the school bus purchase grant, is through ODE as part of the current biennium budget. This will allow us to purchase not quite 2 buses. So while we are always appreciative of any support we get from the state or other places, I also want to take the opportunity to call out appreciation for support of our community and our local business partners, City of Mason, Deerfield Township, and some of those business partnerships that help us fund some of our activities. We have 120 buses in our fleet roughly, and so again, while we appreciate the state support to buy a bus and a half, most of that support does come from our local community, so grateful for that. The last thing I will call out, that archery grant was actually a brainchild of Mr. Tabor at the middle school. So again, last month I think we had a grant that was pursued by Mr. Fish, and same thing this month. Again, our teachers have lots of things on their plates, working hard, balancing and juggling a lot of things, so we appreciate his efforts to go out and pursue a grant to pursue some archery equipment that our middle school kids can use in their classroom. So that's all I have tonight.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Anyone have any comments or questions further?
I'd just like to echo Sean's comments about the generosity of the community. If you look, you know, a lot of what's being contributed to these various organizations and whatnot are community members. So I'm just appreciative to live in a district where the community cares enough to open their pockets as well as their time to make sure that these organizations have what they need to fulfill their missions. We do have some corporate donors on here, and we thank them as well. But really just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to those people who saw fit to donate.
Anything else? Sean, please call the roll, please.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Porro?
Item 17 is committee reports. The first committee we have on the list tonight, we're not voting on this, so we won't take a motion, but Tracy, were you able to attend the Arts and Activities meeting?
This one, I think we actually ended up, Tanya, I'll let you.
For arts and activities this time, basically, we just approved what you saw in 7E Science Discovery Camp.
Yes.
So that was the only item on our agenda, so we approved the staff for that upcoming camp.
Okay. And Diversity Council? Who's your rep? Who's rep for them?
I was able to attend the Diversity Council meeting. I know we've got a big event coming up on March, is it 2nd or 1st? First, March 1st. We've got our annual Taste of Mason. I think the doors open at 5 o'clock. Yes. Is that right? So everybody plan on being there. I see the roof being raised in the back of the room here, so a lot of excitement around that. And especially this year as we return in person to be together and celebrate, as fun as it was to watch the video compilation last year and see the creativity behind that. I think the energy of being back in our building with all of our different families and celebrating the different backgrounds and cultures that we have here in Mason is it's going to be a peak moment this year with everybody. So looking forward to that. That's next Tuesday, a week from tonight. So Looking forward to seeing everybody there. And I don't know, Tracy, do we need some volunteer help still?
We welcome always volunteers. We'll take folks to help. Just really, it is such a special, and I would just say, I was talking to an MECC mom who has been in the district for a few years, but has never yet come to Taste of Mason. And part of it, she said, well, my kids might be finicky eaters. I wasn't sure. I said, just come. So if you've not been yet, I just encourage folks, give it there's food choices abound. You can go from a simple pizza to something a little more representative of other cultures in our district, but you also get immersed in the incredible talent that's in our community, and it's from all of our cultures that are represented. It's such a great night. So if you haven't been yet and you've been kind of teetering, it's a great thing for the kids. This year, our MHS Inclusive Excellence team is going to be doing read-alouds from some of our Windows and Mirrors literature that we've been investing in. So it'll also be a really great opportunity for the younger kids to come in and get some read-aloud opportunities as well.
Thank you, Tracy. The next item is the Finance Committee. Sean or Jonathan, I don't know.
Take it.
Go ahead.
We had a few topics in our Finance Committee meeting last week. One was just looking at some market data. We always want to make sure that our staff our wages are competitive in the market, so we took a look at that for some of our support staff groups. Second topic was a topic actually that came from our Health Insurance Committee that we have several district teachers serve on, so just some evaluation, some recommendations to look at something that could potentially save the district and taxpayers some money, and also make sure that we're still providing high quality benefits for our staff. So we took a look at that. And then last thing was looking at some of our sample property tax bills as a follow-up to our levy, and I'll talk more about that later. So those were our 3 topics this month.
Sounds great. Thank you. The Mason Schools Foundation.
We had a great meeting where we celebrated the success of this year's reading challenge. Major thank you to Kirsten Lupinski, who chaired it. We had the highest dollar amount raised since 2015, and it was another example of last year we had done it virtually, and it was just so wonderful to be back in person at celebrating reading. And also just all of the fun and excitement of what school can be when we're together. So that it was great. We also did vote Matt Steele as our new vice president for the Mason Schools Foundation.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it does feel good to get back in person to a lot of these activities. Mm-hmm. Student Achievement Committee is the last one. Amy, are you?
Please, I'll chime in with my thoughts, but please.
Sure, yeah. So we were happy to meet. We had an opportunity to hear an overview of some of our student survey results from our Panorama survey that we were piloting this year. Identified areas of strength in perceptions of school safety and supportive relationships, and some opportunities for our elementary students in emotion regulation and secondary students in social awareness. And then heard from teachers and students about some of the real ways we're responding to that data. So we know we're not going to survey just to know, we're going to survey to be able to respond and support our learners. So we heard from Mason Intermediate. You heard at our last meetings from some of our LIFT students, and we heard from some others about some really specific skills that they were learning about to help them to be successful as learners in the classroom. And then also about at Mason Elementary, how they have started using morning meeting as a way to start every morning to build meaningful relationships, to really create a safe space for students to start their day as one strategy. And also then similar to LIFT at ME, they have RISE lessons that teach some of those same skills, and had the wonderful thing about having our Student Achievement Committee meetings in buildings, as we got to go see some morning meetings in action. And which was a great, that energy I think lasted me the rest of the day and maybe beyond that. And then we had some updates about some of our literacy data. The big picture being that we're seeing consistent levels of students who are needing support. And of course, we would like to see that go down every year. But seeing our interventions working, we're trying some new systems to monitor students entering and exiting reading intervention at the elementary level, and success with that. So we had our first round, students exited, and that makes room for students who might have emergent needs, students who have moved into the district, and those students who exited on their MAP data are showing consistent grade level performance. So we're excited about that. Also knowing students still need support. So thankfully, the state has removed a mandate in terms of retention for third graders for this year at least. That'd be something we'd love to see continue. But for this year, that's the case. We still have readers, of course, who need support. So that's those items that we approved here also in terms of offering after school support for our third graders and for second graders who will be taking the fall reading test before we know it as third graders next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was able to attend the Student Achievement Committee meeting, and the panorama data is going to be beneficial to us as we try to capture what we're doing well and where the students feel confident and comfortable, and areas where we may need to respond with additional strategies to support them. The LIFT lesson, as we heard at our, I think two board meetings ago, the learning pit was something that stuck with me as something that the students are able to grapple with things that they don't currently understand, and to work through it until they reach a level of understanding, which I thought was fantastic. And then Amy and I actually were able to go to Mrs. Bishop's class and see a morning meeting, which is what they do at ME to connect to their students, and it was the most fantastic thing I think I've seen. The energy that she brought to her students and giving each one of them space to authentically represent who they were with an adjective in the morning, and then she moved them around effortlessly. She made sure that their voices were heard in small groups, and it was just one of those things that, she could run most Fortune 500 companies with that level of efficiency, getting folks organized. So I was just enthralled by what she did, and if we are giving our teachers space and opportunity to be that level of an educator, no wonder we say we have Mason quality. So was really excited about the RISE lesson and morning meeting, but just excited about what's coming in the future as we fully implement the panorama survey and how we can respond to that stuff too. So good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving on to administrator content. I'm sorry. My bad, we're going on a legislative update, my bad. Sorry. So we have a legislative report tonight.
Yeah. I'll just run through a few bills that we're watching out there, if that's okay. First is, we're watching House Bill 51, which just passed, which is just allowing for meetings to be remote if needed. It's not something that we're doing here, but it is something that affects schools in other places around the state. There are two other House bills that we're watching closely that are specific to what is allowed to be discussed in schools today, and that would be House Bill 327 and 322, teaching and advocating on divisive concepts. We'll watch that closely because that would impact what we discuss potentially, and anytime the state legislators are leaning into telling us what we can and can't do, that always gets a little tricky here at the local level. So if that is something that we would need to get involved with closer, we will. But I talked with our folks today about that in Columbus. House Bill 529 is also called a curriculum transparency bill, asking, again, this is where the legislators are potentially trying to step into our space and have curriculum posted online. We already have our curriculum posted online for our parents that have their students in those classes, but for some reason that seems to be a trend going across the nation right now. Those bills, one just passed in Indiana recently, so we'll continue to watch that too. It's another example, again, someone leaning into the local decision making. We feel like we have that covered, but we'll watch that closely if we need to do any advocacy on that. And then House Bill 290 is, again, you heard a one of our guests, either the last meeting or the meeting before that, talked about House Bill 290, the backpack bill that it's referred to. There was one of our guests speak about her concerns for that. That bill will most likely not move much until the next biennium budget. So we'll watch it closely, but this time next year is when that would start to come into effect, when they begin to review the next biennium budget with the governor. So it could, because it's all tied into school funding, unless you heard differently today at the, yeah. So those are bills that we'll watch, and nothing's moving too quickly, but if it did, we would jump in and get our voice heard if we needed to do that.
Thank you. And board member rep?
I think Jonathan mostly stole the thunder there, which I'm happy to let him do. The only thing I will add is that with some of these bills, as you kind of peek into them and stuff, they are still at the nascent stage of their process, and it just so happens that we're entering into primary season, and it seems like some of these bills just happen to pop up around that time of the calendar every cycle. So it makes you wonder when you see these ideas pitched from time to time what the motivating factors are there. I think that some of the ideologues that put these out there, perhaps there's some competing interests if they're really to reflect on things like curriculum transparency and what that means to a school district like ours. So of course we all want transparency. We all want to know what our kids are being taught. It's been my experience that that's been pretty easy to access and find as a parent of a kid in a district. From an operational standpoint, it raises questions for me as a board member as to what sort of support are we going to get from the state level? What kind of new red tape are we going to have to start wrapping around our teachers, wrapping around our district, encumbering funds for supporting something like that were otherwise being funneled to the classroom. So it's something that we will be keeping an eye on for sure, but hopefully come May we might see some of the passion behind those bills die down or pick up. You never know. So we'll see what happens.
And you're right exactly when it comes to possible unintended impacts and consequences. Even what Ian, Mr. Orr, was saying earlier, what he saw happening in that classroom, that was a beautiful, personalized, organic piece that the teacher is using their craft to do. When you start getting into this, it could begin to be cookie cutter kind of things that start to come out of that. And that would be a concern we would have at a local level. So I appreciate you noticing that.
And I also think that another unintended consequence is we already have a teacher shortage, right? And so as you see these kinds of things being discussed, as a current teacher or as someone who is thinking about becoming a teacher, you say to yourself, is this the kind of environment, is this the impact, is this who I see myself as in the classroom? And it can have a deleterious effect on making sure that we're able to staff appropriately, because it becomes more of a bureaucratic exercise versus trying to help a child become who they want to be. And I think as as these bills get debated and discussed, I hope that we don't lose sight that what gets hurt is teachers, and if teachers are harmed, then it harms kids, right? So if you believe that teachers are qualified to do their job and are professionals, we should allow them to do their job, right? And teach our students. And if we disagree, we can have those conversations, but some of the stuff that's being debated to me says that we don't trust teachers, and I think that is a wrong message to send.
Okay. Next item tonight is board commentary. And Kevin?
Administrator commentary.
Yeah. I apologize.
It's all good.
I'm having trouble seeing tonight. My good eye is my right eye, and it's the one not cooperating with me tonight. Administrator commentary, and Tracy, we will start with you.
Sure. During the Mason High School Black History, the Black Student Union's meeting, really that was a wonderful opportunity to understand why it's so important to have affinity spaces. That was a piece of what they were talking about and having discussion. As a district, we have an opportunity to support on this Thursday, February 24th. Our DEI Council is also sponsoring Jordan Bankston. He's the founder of Forever Kings, to be our kind of Black History Month spark for the district from 5 to 6:30 at Mesa Middle School. And he's really done a lot of work in how you create affinity spaces for Black boys. And so a lot of Black boy love going on in this, and how we as community members who care about our Black boys, about how educators who care about Black boys, hearing his own story and how those spaces are created. I encourage folks who share that mission of making sure that our Black boys are supported in Mason to come out and get inspired by Jordan. Amy?
So this month and next month, we are going through our OHSAA testing, which is our Ohio English Language Proficiency Assessment. So I just wanted to take this moment to recognize our fantastic team who supports our English learners, and to sort of talk a little bit about it by the numbers as a reminder for us all about this, this group of learners. We do have, as you know this number well, I think, about 75 different languages spoken in our community. About 30% of our students coming from homes where a language other than English is spoken. Of course, not all of those students are receiving English learner services or would need those supports. We have this year 938 students who are identified as English learners, meaning they are receiving some level of extra support to increase English proficiency. I was going back through some of my notes, and when I started 3 years ago, I remember speaking with our English learner supervisor, Milena Varbanova, and she said, it's usually about 750 students is where we are. So we've seen that number steadily climb over the years, and particularly the last few. In addition, our teachers monitor those students who exit. So every year we have somewhere in the range of 25 to 30% of students who show proficiency and exit services, but then they continue to monitor and make sure that they're doing okay without that extra level of support. So this year that's 268 students who those teachers are also monitoring. The OHSAA testing, and why I wanted to mention it this month, I mean, it's a one-on-one test because they need to test all of the different facets of speech and listening and writing and reading. And so it's amazing how they make that work while trying to be minimally disruptive to student schedules and making sure that they're still getting the instruction that they need. So just really kudos to them. Our sort of fastest growing groups are students from Uzbekistan and Guatemala. And this year, Uzbekistani students coming more last year and then continuing this year, and are sort of a new population coming from Guatemala as well this year. So those are the numbers. What I would also add is just the human side of the care that every member of this team and our educators as a whole, and especially though our English learner teachers, paraprofessionals, supervisors, assistant principals in each building who work with them, just to make sure that they really feel welcomed within the building, that they have the extra levels of support and their families that they need to be successful. And so just a huge shout out and gratitude to them this month.
Thank you, Amy. Lots of good stuff going on. Tanya?
I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Marsha Croy and Amy Camello in the HR office, who processed 43 new subs since our last meeting. And if you have any idea what kind of paperwork that is, it was great to be able to see their faces and not see them behind the stacks on the desk. So thank you to them.
Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on Amy in talking about Milena Varbanova and our ESL or ELL population. She's actually had some innovative solutions to help offer increased customer service to our families. So we're going to be having a voice mailbox for each of our languages, our 7 highest frequency or most enrolled students for those languages. We're going to have those as well as email addresses for them. And the translators will actually monitor those. So it's just that extra level of support if a family doesn't understand, particularly as we start kindergarten registrations coming up. So as we start those types of processes, to make sure that we offer those supports so those families don't miss those important messages.
Excellent, thank you.
Nothing
Todd?
at this time.
Sean?
Just want to give a couple updates related to the 2020 operating levy. Again, as a reminder, that was a phased-in levy. It had two parts. The first part was the 4.71 mils, increased property taxes by less than $14 a month per $100,000 of value. That was on last year's property tax bills that went out about this time. The second part of that levy was the 5.25 mils that went into effect for this year on the property tax bills that went out here in the last month. And if people are watching their property tax bills, you'll notice that you did not see, $15 a month increase on $100,000 of value, because that was offset by the drop in bond millage. So this building we're sitting in was paid off in December. The original part of it was paid off in December. So that drop in millage offset that increase from the 2020 operating levy phase 2. We'll talk more about that next month and go into a little bit more detail, but I will mention at least one caveat tonight, and that's that when we say talk about the increases, we're talking about the average. So some people, a home value might have gone up more than the average. They might have seen a small increase. For some people, their home value might have gone up less than the average, and they might have seen a decrease. But on the average, those were kind of the results. The second thing I wanted to mention was that we're almost 2 full years into our commitment to make that levy last at least 5 years. And a lot of things have happened in the last 2 years across our country and across the world, but I'm happy to say that we are still on track to fulfill that commitment.
Excellent, thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, just a couple quick items. First of all, as we come down to this final weeks of February, just all the work that's gone into Black History Month in our buildings. There's a lot of activities that come to a head at the end of the month, whether it's the trivia or it's the floats, and just a lot of great opportunities for our kids. So just thank you for all of our teachers and our support staff, our administrators, for making that happen and making that a purposeful time. Also want to just thank, I was able to be with Amy Brennan, our Deputy Superintendent, Soraya Smith, our DEI LED in Nashville over this last weekend at the National Conference on Education with, I think it was over 4,000 superintendents from around the United States. And the whole focus there was to share different things that are going on in our district, and we were chosen to present and share on the inclusive excellence work that's happening in our district and some of the work that we've worked on over the last 4 years and the work that we're hoping to continue moving forward in our district. And even just to have the honest, raw conversations around the table about how it's messy, it's difficult, it's not easy, but it's so much the right work for all kids. And how we're just so blessed to be in a community that has a board that supports us, that has a team that believes in what we're doing. And when we're not perfect and when we do mess up, we are open to learning and getting better at that. And so that, to be able to share that message on behalf of the district to other schools and give them hope, a lot of school districts were able to take ideas from that and to bring those back. They had a lot of good questions for us, like how do you do this? How do you navigate these things? And one of the things that became really clear to us, I think, as we reflected, was just how grateful we are to have had those things in place before the pandemic hit that helped us to guide our thinking and our decision-making as we went through that difficult time. So I want to thank my colleagues and just congratulate them as well. And then if you're a family out there and you're watching this, or you know families out there, there's a lot going on in well beyond the Mason walls and the global narrative out there. And if your family is affected or impacted by any of those things that are going on out there, because I know we have several different cultures represented in our district, please know that you can reach out to us. We do have resources for supporting you and your family, even if that's just counseling services and other support services. So please let us know. Don't think you need to go through that alone. So just want to put that invitation out there to our families that possibly have connections over in different parts of the world. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now we'll move on to board commentary. Kevin, would you like to go?
Well, we hit on some of them already, so I don't have a lot extra, but I would just want to emphasize that the common theme there about local control, just to remind you, as these kind of legislative issues pop up, is that we have to continue to make our focus on what makes Mason best it can be, regardless of what those laws are. You've always had a board that's waiting for the first time, we can challenge one of them if they ever pass, and we're happy to do it if it causes us to not be able to make decisions we want to make locally. But I would also balance that comment. It's a little different than I've said for 20 years. Usually I can end there, but I would also, recognize that part of the fuel that's driving it is just some very irresponsible school boards around the country. And I would ask them to exercise the kind of responsibility and focus on your own local control that we try to do. And I think that's really important. And also just emphasize, as Charles did, that we all want to be accessible to every parent, regardless of their point of view. That podium's been available for every board meeting that I've been a part of for 20 years. A lot of what's been said at that microphone is not polite, not complimentary of those of us sitting here. We take value in those comments just as much as we appreciate the rosy thank yous that sometimes show up there as well. So we've got to continue to support parents. We ask all school boards to be responsible in their activities to do the same, and keep our focus on what we want to do here in Mason and exercise that local control that we always talk about, because it also comes with accountability and responsibility. So I would also just like to thank Ms. Lipinski and the Mason Schools Foundation for their continued work. It's a small group that does, it's like any other big effort. It's a small group that does 90% of the work, but it's a lot of teachers who get engaged in the process, and that's part of the model, is so that they understand as they're helping raise the money for the grants that ultimately come back. And so always appreciate seeing how that's growing. And I'd also make one final comment. Mr. Perdue made a comment tonight about a lawsuit, and there is a lawsuit, and since he brought it up, it gives me the opportunity to say our ability to communicate with him is limited because there's a lawsuit involved, and we're fine with that. It's okay. There's nothing alarming about it, but the fact that there's a lawsuit is often sometimes the best thing, because it presents a process to follow, and we're glad to do that. So, and we'll continue to listen to Mr. Perdue every time he wants to come up. So that's it.
Thank you. Charles?
Well, I was just going to comment that, the community we have here in Mason is special. And, I've said it before, I've not felt in my time on the board any, cause for concern from any of the comments we've gotten from the podium to me personally as a board member. I think that this is, if this is the only lens through which you view the work that's going on in our district, then you are missing out on a lot. This is a tiny sliver, this once or twice a month meeting that we have here, and it's also, to the comment about the podium, it's also a small portion of the engagement that we receive from the community, and certainly as a board, the engagement that we try to reflect back to our community. It's we are conscientious as a board of the time of our administrators here, and the folks that have families that need to get home to as a regular basis. And so as board members, we make ourselves available off the clock, so to speak, and are always happy to talk to people at length about whatever their concerns are. That invitation is not always met, and so all you can do is extend it sometimes. So I want to move next to our Comet sports teams that are wrapping up their winter seasons. I know we've got our girls basketball team has a game on Saturday against Springboro. I think it's at Princeton High School. So get out and support them. Might be a great opportunity to see our McDonald's All-American in person nearby before they head up to Columbus eventually. Also want to wish our Comet swimming and diving team good luck as they head up to Canton. They had a great district meet this past weekend. And also just congratulate the rest of our Comet teams on good seasons. And if I've missed anybody who's still competing at this point, I apologize. Try to catch what I can in between diaper changes these days. And then in addition to all of that stuff, just want to reflect some gratitude on Jonathan and Tracy, you two in particular. We've heard some comments about the incident that occurred a couple weeks ago. Just really appreciate your all's time and attention to that incident, the Black Student Union's meeting, the follow-up and investigating that went into trying to figure out what happened. While a lot of people were at home spending time with their families, getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday. The work doesn't stop for you guys. You're not ever off the clock, and when a crisis or something hits, and so we really appreciate you guys turning your attention to that and responding to that immediately, and doing what you can to serve our community and our students. And kind of being on the ball with that. So thank you very much.
Okay. Ian?
So reflecting on some things that I've seen, and unfortunately my youngest son didn't get to participate in his concert, but this is sort of concert and play season, and it made me reflect for the past, year, where those students who have a passion to act or to sing or to play an instrument, while they may have been able to do that from their home, weren't able to do that here, or all the Comets weren't able to do that here. So to see our Comets be able to perform their passions safely is due to a lot of the hard work that people have done in this room. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm sure if they could meet each one of you and thank you for bringing them back into the building safely, to allowing them to do the thing that may be the reason they come to school every day, I think is hugely important. And I love seeing it, and it just makes me grateful that we work hard to have moments like that. So thank you guys. I wasn't on the BSU call, but as someone who looks like a lot of the people and the students that were on the call, what I want to say to you is that you're not what they called you. I've heard that word used to me or a loved one more times than I'd care to remember, but I've never let it define me. So please don't let it define you. It is not something you should carry around with any shame, with any negative connotations about who you are. You are beautiful just the way you are. So know from me to you, if you ever need to talk or you want to walk that through, I'm here, but please don't internalize what happened to you. You're all very brilliant, and the community members as well. With that being said, a lot has been said about me being the first Black school board member, and that's well and true. But 20 years ago, someone else made a little history sitting in this room by being named the middle school principal. So I'd like to take a moment to honor Tanya McCall as the first Black woman to be named a building principal in our school district. So thank you. Your service to this school district has been exemplary, and I appreciate it personally, so thank you. You stole all my sports thunder because you're a sports guy too. I actually went to see them play the semifinal against Sycamore last night, and it is just, it's amazing. It's a thing of beauty. It is a well-oiled machine. Kyla gets a lot of the focus, but they are a really good team. So please, the district final is at Princeton on Saturday. let's support our young ladies as they go out and compete, because that is a very special team that's worth watching. It's worth the price of admission, as they say. So the final thing is, today's a weird day. It's like a once in a lifetime day. It's a palindrome. And as such, my brilliant wife and I had the foresight to have a child 12 years ago on 2/22/12, knowing that this moment would come for him. So happy birthday, Aaron. I love you. You get this palindrome day, and you get to call it your birthday. So it's my son's 12th birthday. So we love you, buddy. Happy birthday.
Was he born at 2 o'clock?
He actually was. And I'll tell you how I remember that. Dr. Phil was on. And my wife said, turn it off. I'm not giving birth.
No doubt. You go, girl. Thank you.
Yep.
I want to highlight Sean tonight because a lot of what we do, all of what we do in this district couldn't happen without somebody who kept a watchful eye on the dollar. And I thought, particularly this past week, your preparation for this board meeting and your communication with the board beforehand, emphasizing how we're reducing our debt, emphasizing the impact or lack thereof on property values, and how we as a district really are mindful of that, not just now, not just at levy time, but all the time. And it takes a district, including and especially our treasurer, to make sure all that happens, and I appreciate you very much. I do want to address, as a board member and a community member, the Black Student Union Zoom bomb. I was deeply disturbed by it. I don't find it acceptable on any level to do that to any person, regardless of who they are and what they look like and what they like to do. So I personally took great offense to that, and I think after the details came in and we got through some information gathering, I think, Jonathan, some of your last communications really summed up the appropriateness of standing up for what is right, calling it what it is, and saying we won't stand for it. And we care about the people who are hurt, regardless of who they are, what they are. We care about people in this district. It's what we stand for. It's the type of community that we have. And that being said, we have an awful lot of, as Charles mentioned tonight, wonderful success stories. Tonight was the dance team.
Mm-hmm.
We had the McDonald's basketball player. We have so many, and we need to focus on the positives and find positive ways to send our energy and continue to make Mason a leader in school districts, make our students a leader among the people. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Sean?
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you.